Would you have the courage to step into a place that was built to treat people, but is now completely abandoned, silent, and taken over by time? Sanatoriums were meant to be spaces of recovery, controlled isolation, and hope. But some of them were left behind so abruptly that they seem frozen in time, carrying stories that still cause discomfort to this day. What really happened in these places for them to be abandoned like that? And why do so many of them continue to attract curiosity, fear, and reports that are hard to ignore? In this video, you're about to go on a journey through the most disturbing abandoned sanatoriums in the world. We start with lesser-known locations and move toward places with increasingly intense and hard-to-forget histories. Stay until the end, because number one is not just an abandoned sanatorium, it's one of the most impactful places ever recorded. Sweden, Ulricehamn, Sjögunnarsbo Sanatorium. Located in Ulricehamn, SV, Sweden, the Sjögunnarsbo Sanatorium was a facility focused on treating tuberculosis, one of the most concerning diseases in Europe during the early 20th century. The location became known for its isolation and for the condition in which it was left after being abandoned, surrounded by nature and far from urban movement. The sanatorium was established in the early 20th century, during a period when treatment methods relied heavily on fresh air, distance from crowded areas, and controlled routines. At the time, remote institutions like this were considered necessary for recovery. The turning point came when medical advancements made this model less essential, leading to its closure. The structure included wooden and concrete buildings, patient wards, and outdoor resting areas used as part of the treatment process. Even after years of abandonment, the layout still reflects its original medical purpose, although much of the site has been overtaken by vegetation and wear. Access requires moving through natural areas, and the interior includes empty hallways, abandoned rooms, and sections partially covered by plants. The experience of entering the site is marked by the contrast between the quiet landscape outside and the deteriorated structure inside. The real risks include unstable floors, weakened structures, and exposure to the elements. Some parts appear more intact than others, but the lack of maintenance makes movement unpredictable. The environment is defined by deep silence, with wind passing through broken windows and surrounding trees. In some areas, nature blends almost completely with the remains of the building, reinforcing the sense that the place has been slowly reclaimed over time. Documented fact. The sanatorium was deactivated as treatments evolved throughout the 20th century. Popular report: visitors describe discomfort and the feeling of not being completely alone. Sjögunnarsbo became an example of how time transforms forgotten places. And if this one already stands out for its isolation, the next reveals the impact of a much larger structure. United States, Perrysburg, J.N. Adam Memorial Hospital. Located in Perrysburg, New York, United States, the J.N. Adam Memorial Hospital is a former hospital and sanatorium known for its size and long period of operation within the regional healthcare system. Even today, the complex stands out for the scale of its buildings and the strong impression left by its abandoned condition. Built in the early 20th century, it was designed to treat patients with chronic illnesses, operating for decades before medical and structural changes contributed to its closure. For a long time, it served as an important institutional space. But as healthcare practices evolved, the complex gradually lost its original function. The site includes multiple buildings with hospital wings, dormitories, and administrative areas, built from brick and concrete and spread across a large property. Its layout gives the impression of a place that once operated continuously, with many connected spaces serving different purposes. Access is restricted, and internal movement reveals long corridors, staircases, and empty rooms that create a strong sense of repetition. As you move deeper into the structure, the architecture itself becomes part of the experience, with rows of doors and nearly identical sections extending farther than expected. Risks include deteriorated structures, broken glass, debris, and poorly lit areas. The size of the property also increases the difficulty of moving through it safely, especially in neglected sections. The environment is quiet, with strong echoes in the hallways, making even small sounds carry through the building. In some sections, repeating rooms and doors create the impression that the space continues endlessly, adding to the unsettling atmosphere. Documented fact: the hospital operated for decades as part of the local healthcare system. Visitors report footsteps, doors moving, and a sense of presence in empty areas. The site became a symbol of abandoned medical institutions in the United States. And if this place already feels overwhelming because of its size, the next one takes isolation into an even more remote setting. Croatia, Zagreb, Brestovac Sanatorium. Located in Zagreb, Croatia, the Brestovac Sanatorium is a former medical facility built in a mountainous area, known mainly for its isolation and the way it was left behind, surrounded by dense forest. The site was established in the early 20th century as a center for tuberculosis treatment, using the region's clean air as part of the recovery process. The turning point came when medical advancements made this type of isolation less necessary, leading to its gradual closure. The structure includes stone and concrete buildings, with patient wards, long corridors, and outdoor areas designed for rest. Over time, many of these structures began to deteriorate. Access requires hiking through forested paths, and the interior reveals empty hallways, open rooms, and sections already compromised by time. Risks include unstable flooring, moisture damage, broken sections, and complete lack of maintenance. The environment is extremely quiet, with constant wind moving through trees and broken windows, reinforcing a deep sense of isolation. In some areas, vegetation has taken over the interior, blending nature with the remains of the structure. Documented fact: the sanatorium was closed as treatments evolved throughout the 20th century. Visitors described discomfort, faint sounds, and the feeling of a presence in more remote sections. Brestovac became a symbol of abandonment in isolated regions. And if this place already feels remote, the next one takes that isolation even further. Spain, Zaragoza. Agramonte del Moncayo Tuberculosis Sanatorium. Located in Zaragoza, Spain, the Agramonte del Moncayo Tuberculosis Sanatorium is a former facility set in a remote mountainous area, known for its abandoned condition and its distance from urban centers. Its location is one of the main reasons it stands out, since the surrounding landscape reinforces the sense of separation from ordinary life. Built in the early 20th century, it was designed to treat tuberculosis patients in isolation, where distance itself was considered part of the treatment. At the time, remote settings with clean air and limited outside contact were seen as important for recovery. It was eventually abandoned as medical advancements made this approach outdated. The structure consists of masonry buildings, multiple rooms, long corridors, and open areas once used for patient recovery. Even in its deteriorated condition, the site still reflects the practical design of a place built for long-term care and controlled routines. Access is through secondary roads, and movement inside includes empty rooms, extended corridors, and exposed outdoor sections. As visitors move through the complex, the lack of activity and the repeated layout make the place feel larger and more distant than expected. Risks involve structural wear, debris, uneven floors, and lack of maintenance. Some areas are visibly compromised, while others appear accessible, but still require caution due to age and neglect. The environment is marked by constant silence and wind, with little external interference. In some areas, the place feels completely frozen in time, as if it had been left behind without preparation. The repetition of spaces and lack of clear visual reference points increase the sense of disorientation. The sanatorium was abandoned as this type of treatment declined. Popular report: visitors report faint sounds, echoes, and a sense of presence in enclosed areas. Agramonte became a known location among urban explorers. And if this one already stands out for its isolation, the next brings that feeling closer to populated areas. Portugal, Valongo. Valongo Sanatorium. Located in Valongo, Portugal, the Valongo Sanatorium is an abandoned structure known for its proximity to urban areas and its advanced state of deterioration. Unlike more remote facilities, this one stands out because it is closer to populated zones while still preserving a strong atmosphere of abandonment. Built in the 20th century, it was used to treat respiratory illnesses following the isolation model common at the time. Like many sanatoriums, it was created during a period when distance, controlled environments, and long-term care were considered important parts of treatment. It was abandoned as medical practices evolved. The structure includes multi-story concrete buildings, long corridors, staircases, and open areas now heavily worn by time. Even in its deteriorated state, the layout still reflects the organization of a medical institution built for circulation, patient accommodation, and routine care. Access is relatively easy, and movement inside reveals empty rooms, long hallways, damaged staircases, and exposed sections. That accessibility makes the condition of the site even more striking, since the abandoned atmosphere exists so close to everyday urban life. Risks include unstable floors, potential falls, structural weaknesses, and debris. Some areas are more exposed, while others are darker and more enclosed, requiring caution throughout the structure. The environment is quiet, with occasional wind moving through the structure and echoing through the halls. In some areas, light enters through broken openings, creating strong contrasts between bright and dark spaces. Documented fact: the sanatorium was deactivated as treatments advanced over time. Popular report: visitors report discomfort, unexplained sounds, and the sense of movement in empty areas. If you're following this journey through the most disturbing abandoned sanatoriums in the world, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because from this point on, the locations become even more intense. Valongo became one of the most recognized abandoned sanatoriums in Portugal. And if this one already stands out for its location, the next takes this experience into an even more remote setting. Old Changi Hospital, Singapore. On Singapore's eastern coast, in a region now filled with luxury apartments and modern buildings, stands an abandoned structure that looks completely out of place. Old Changi Hospital was opened in 1935 as part of the British military base, originally intended only for armed forces personnel. But during the Japanese occupation in World War II, the hospital's role took a much darker turn. It's believed that part of the hospital was used as an interrogation and detention center. Although not all official documents reveal what truly went on inside, eyewitness accounts and historical references point to episodes of extreme suffering. After the war, the site reopened as a civilian hospital and continued to operate until it was permanently closed in 1997. The building has 3 main floors connected by narrow staircases and long hallways, with rooms on either side. Constructed with concrete and brick, many of its windows are now broken or missing entirely. Singapore's humid climate has accelerated the decay. Mold creeps along the walls, leaks are everywhere, and vegetation has started overtaking the outer areas. Officially, entry is forbidden, but people still find their way inside through side entrances or ground-level openings. Once inside, the air feels heavy and damp, with a strong smell of moisture. There's echo even in small spaces, and very little natural light reaches the interior. What unsettles visitors most isn't the architecture, but the oppressive silence, broken by strange sudden noises coming from empty rooms. Stories of shadows moving across halls, muffled screams, and unexplained voices are common. Locals even report sounds coming from the building late at night, and figures appearing in windows. Old Changi Hospital is considered one of the most haunted places in Asia. But the next stop takes us to a psychiatric hospital in Europe, where echoes of mental suffering are still etched into the walls. Spain, Murcia, Sanatorio de Sierra Espuña. Located in Murcia, Spain, the Sanatorio de Sierra Espuña is a former sanatorium built in a mountainous area, known for its advanced state of deterioration and the isolation that surrounds it. Its remote setting and damaged condition made it one of the most recognized abandoned medical sites in Spain. The facility was constructed in the 20th century to treat respiratory illnesses, following the isolation-based medical approach of the time. Like other sanatoriums, it was created during a period when distance and controlled environments were considered part of treatment. It was later abandoned as healthcare systems evolved and treatments improved. The structure consists of concrete buildings with multiple floors, long corridors, and numerous rooms distributed throughout the complex. Even in its deteriorated state, the layout still reflects the organization of a place built for long-term care. Access is through roads and natural areas, and movement inside includes empty hallways, open rooms, and sections exposed to the elements. The condition of the site becomes more visible as visitors move through damaged interior spaces. Risks include unstable floors, potential falls, weakened structures, and scattered debris. In some sections, the state of deterioration makes movement uncertain. The environment is quiet, with wind moving through the interior and creating echoes along the corridors. In some areas, light enters through broken openings, forming strong contrasts between illuminated and shadowed spaces. The lack of activity reinforces the sense of abandonment. Documented fact: the sanatorium was deactivated as medical treatments modernized over the 20th century. Popular report: visitors describe discomfort, sounds, and the feeling of not being alone in certain areas. Sierra Espuna became one of the most recognized abandoned sites in Spain. And if this one already stands out for its deterioration, the next takes this experience to a globally known level. United States, Louisville. Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Located in Louisville, Kentucky, United States, the Waverly Hills Sanatorium is one of the most well-known sanatoriums in the world, recognized for both its history and the reports associated with it. Its reputation made it one of the most discussed abandoned medical locations anywhere. Built in the early 20th century, it was used to treat tuberculosis patients during critical periods of the disease. Institutions like this played a major role in long-term treatment through isolation and structured care. The turning point came as medical advancements led to the closure of the facility. The structure is large, with multiple floors, long corridors, hospital wings, and areas designed for different stages of treatment. Its scale is one of its most striking features. Access is controlled through guided tours, and movement includes long hallways, staircases, and large interior spaces that emphasize the size of the building. The repeating layout and the depth of the corridors make the environment feel even larger. Risks are moderate and include low lighting, aging structures, and the need for careful movement. Even with controlled access, the building still requires attention because of its age and condition. The environment is defined by silence, constant echo, and limited light. Repeating doors and spaces increase the feeling of disorientation. The scale of the building makes even small sounds seem to travel throughout the structure. Documented fact: the sanatorium was one of the main tuberculosis treatment centers in the United States. Popular report: visitors report sounds, subtle movements, and a sense of presence in different parts of the building. Waverly Hills became a global reference when it comes to abandoned sanatoriums. And if this one already stands out for its reputation, the next takes that intensity even further. Germany, Belitz. Belitz Heilstätten. Located in Belitz, Brandenburg, Germany, the Belitz Heilstätten is a massive sanatorium complex known for its scale and abandonment. More than a single building, it stands out as one of Europe's most iconic abandoned medical sites. Built in the late 19th century and expanded in the early 20th century, it was designed to treat respiratory illnesses, including tuberculosis, in a remote environment. Like many sanatoriums of its era, it followed the idea that isolation and controlled surroundings were important parts of treatment. As medical practices changed, parts of the complex were gradually abandoned. The structure consists of numerous brick and concrete buildings, with multiple floors, long corridors, hospital wings, and administrative areas spread across a vast site. Its layout reflects the scale of an institution that once operated through many connected sections. Access is partially controlled, with some sections open to visitors while others remain restricted. Movement includes corridors, staircases, pavilions, and repeating architectural patterns, making the size of the complex even more noticeable. Risks include deteriorated structures, unstable flooring, restricted zones, and the need for constant caution. Because the complex is so large, conditions can vary from one section to another. The environment is quiet, with wind passing through broken windows and echoing across empty hallways. In some areas, vegetation grows inside the buildings, creating a contrast between nature and decay, and increasing the feeling of isolation. Documented fact: the complex operated for decades as a major medical center and went through multiple historical phases. Visitors report sounds, a sense of presence and discomfort in more remote areas. Beelitz-Heilstätten became one of Europe's most iconic abandoned complexes. And if this one already impresses with its scale, the final location carries an even deeper historical weight. Costa Rica, Potrero Cerrado, Sanatorio Durán. Located in Potrero Cerrado, Costa Rica, the Sanatorio Durán is a former sanatorium known for its history and abandoned condition, which turned it into one of the most talked about locations in the country. Built in the early 20th century, it was used to treat tuberculosis patients in an isolated environment. Like many institutions created for that purpose, it followed the idea that distance and controlled surroundings were important parts of treatment. With the advancement of medicine, the facility was eventually deactivated and abandoned. The structure includes multiple concrete buildings, with corridors, rooms, open areas, and sections that reflect its original medical function. Even after years of abandonment, the layout still preserves the identity of a place built for long-term care. Access is possible, and the site receives visitors. Movement includes corridors, staircases, and outdoor paths connecting different buildings, creating a constant transition between open and enclosed spaces. Risks include deteriorated structures, unstable flooring, moisture, and the need for careful navigation. In several areas, the condition of the buildings makes caution necessary. The environment is quiet, with wind moving between buildings and echoing through the corridors. Vegetation has taken over parts of the structure, reinforcing the sense of abandonment. Documented fact: the sanatorium was one of the main tuberculosis treatment centers in Costa Rica. Popular report: visitors report sounds, unusual sensations, and the feeling of presence in different areas. Sanatorio Durán became one of the most recognized locations in the country for this type of history. It becomes clear that some places carry far more than just physical structures. From isolated structures in Europe to massive complexes in Germany and the Americas, this journey showed how abandoned sanatoriums can carry far more than empty walls and corridors. We started with lesser-known locations and moved toward places with increasingly intense histories, where time, silence, and abandonment create an atmosphere that's hard to ignore. These places are not just forgotten buildings. They are real marks of what happened there and what many people still avoid remembering. Now I want to know, which of these locations caught your attention the most? Would you ever explore one of them on your own? And is there another place you've seen that deserves to be on the next list? If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. That helps the channel grow and guarantees more videos with the same style, bringing real, engaging, and lesser-known stories.